Uh, my name is Makere. I'm with PlunketLine. I'm joined here today with Kate Hicks from my birth story and Birth Trauma Aotearoa. Some of you might know me and recognise me, my face. I've done a few of these Facebook Lives, so today I'm just going to put it all with Kate, ask lots of questions, and then we're just going to go through the flow of it. So I'll just let Kate introduce herself.
Kia ora koutou and tēnā koutou katoa, ko ingarangi te whakapaparanga mai, ko te whanganui atara, te whenua tupu, ko hangina te kainga, he founder NCE Oe Birth Trauma Aotearoa, ko Kate O, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora everyone, thank you for having me along today for this week kōrero, and apologies about the glitchy start there. That's the beauty of these virtual chats and things. So I am Kate. I'm a full-time mum to two little ones. I live up in the mighty Manawatu. And a little bit of background about me, I guess I had a tricky birth experience about 7 years ago, and long story short, found very few resources to support me and my whānau back then. So long story short, decided to create the My Birth Story Birth Trauma Support website, which offers kind of comfort, information and support options following either a physically or emotionally tricky birth. And then since then have gone on to establish Birth Trauma Aotearoa. So we are a registered charitable trust working across New Zealand, and we undertake education, advocacy, research, and offer some support for both physical and psychological birth trauma. So I guess I've been working in this space for just over 7 years, and more recently, I guess, in relation to birth injury, I've been part of an advisory group which has been advising ACC on the legislation change and how to best support or best create programs that support māmā and birthing parents and the wider whānau. So that's kind of how I come to this space and how I get to be in front of you today. And just before we move on, Makere, we were going to do a bit of a content warning or a trigger warning. So some of the stuff that we talk about today may feel quite heavy and quite triggering, so if anybody needs to just step out for a bit or tag out altogether, and also acknowledging that things may bubble up over the next few days or weeks after our kōrero today. So to reach out to the supports that are around people, and the My Birth Story website has a whole big page called External Resources, and on that page are individuals and organisations who can kind of support you in your journey, and also has the crisis line kind of numbers there too, so if anybody needs some support kind of right now. So yeah, kia ora everyone, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. Amazing.
Makere, sorry, I'm struggling to hear you.
Oh,
no.
Oh. We have some technical issues in this, so hopefully
that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, okay. Keep going.
Hopefully you can all hear me. I'll talk louder. I'm pretty used to talking loud. I'm a mama of 6, so I'm always kind of yelling and a bit louder than everybody else in the room to try and get everyone's attention. I was just saying that website is a really good, it's an amazing resource actually. I checked it out before, and it is just, it's so good to have, because it's just one of those things that, like, it's hard to find what you don't know is not out there, and to know that there's all of that information there, support out there, just
in one place, can be really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess today we're going to talk about, we're going to be covering what is birth trauma, when birth doesn't go to plan, types of birth injuries, changes to ACC cover, support, types of support, surgery, physio, counselling, rongoa Māori, how you can access the support, just general advice, and just keep little, and just hopefully kind of inform as many mama, papa, whānau out there as we can, and just empower. That's I feel like when I was going through what this kōrero was going to be about, that was what I felt what it was. It's just about empowering us whānau to kind of advocate for ourselves and know what's out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's so many places we can get information from, right? We can get it from on the internet, or mums groups, or our own mum or auntie, or medical professionals. And sometimes all that information is really, really different. And sometimes it's backed by some maybe older, maybe archaic kind of attitudes and information. So really great to have this kōrero so we can clear some things up.
And also in a New Zealand context too, because there's so many information international, Australian based, but it's really hard to get that New Zealand based kind of info.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So I guess the first question is, what is birth trauma?
Really good question. Birth trauma that term is kind of tricky in a way, because so many people use it for so many kind of different things, I guess. Like sometimes people use the term birth trauma to mean just physical injury. Sometimes people use birth trauma to mean just kind of psychological or emotional distress that's related to birth. Sometimes people and organisations, even different countries, use it to mean both of those things. So there's no kind of internationally recognised definition of what birth trauma is. But at Birth Trauma Aotearoa, we define birth trauma as any physical or psychological harm or trauma to come from, that is related to the birth experience. And so we include both physical and psychological trauma. And we also kind of cast the net quite wide. And at Birth Trauma Aotearoa, we include the pregnancy journey, so even fertility challenges, labour and birth, and also early postpartum. So anything that's kind of related or around birth that is challenging or physically challenging, then that's kind of how we frame it at Birth Trauma Aotearoa. So today, I guess we're talking more about the physical challenges and physical injury that can come along, that can happen because of birth. And I just recently did a really great kōrero with a woman named Makere Sargent, who she works at Healing Birth, which is New Zealand's first kind of birth trauma specific counselling service. So Carla and I did a webinar around more psychological kind of birth trauma and what that is, what can cause it, how people can kind of start to go there and start to kind of look at their experience and heal it. So that webinar, if people are more interested, or also interested in psychological aspects of birth trauma, that webinar is posted or pinned to the top rather of the Birth Trauma Aotearoa Facebook page. So if people just kind of search for Birth Trauma Aotearoa on Facebook, then that kōrero is pinned to the top of our page. So today we're talking more physical, but that's about psychological. Pardon me?
Well,
sorry, I still couldn't hear you.
We will be posting all of the recommended websites at the end of the kōrero as well on our page. So
awesome.
There'll be for everything as well.
Yep, choice. Thank you.
So today we're going to concentrate more. It doesn't mean that we're not going to talk a little bit about it, because one-on-one, we don't know how the conversations are going to go, but we're going to try and focus as much as we can on kind of that birth trauma, the physical kind of side of things. Is that?
Yeah, and it's I think it's important to acknowledge too that we can experience all of them. Like there's so many different kind of so many different experiences that come with birth, right? And sometimes people can have just a physically traumatic birth, so they just have a physical injury. Sometimes that physical injury can lead to kind of some emotional distress related to the injury, and sometimes people can have just psychological trauma occur from the birth. So it's important to know, I guess, that today we're kind of focusing on physical injury, but all of those experiences, or any mixture of those experiences, they all deserve support, no matter how minor or major they feel. Everybody's kind of deserving of that awhina. Yeah.
So what kind of support would you offer a māmā?
Yeah, so I think again, you know, our birth can not go to plan in either a physical sense, and we do end up with a physical injury, or it can not go to plan in a kind of you know, it's not the experience that we had hoped for or imagined or planned for. And it's really important that we kind of address both, I guess. So physical injury can be a bit kind of easier to deal with sometimes, because, you know, you go to the doctor, you go to the pelvic health physio, and you do the exercises, and that might be enough, right? And the mental health stuff can sometimes be trickier to address. But I think it's really important to address both, so that, you know, we have the support we need to be really well as particularly new parents, because, you know, we need to remember that all of this is going on when we've got a new baby or babies, and possibly other children, and, you know, all of that other life stuff as well, right? But we often forget that these experiences happen, you know, when we've still got bills to pay, and still got the mortgage to think about, and got other kids to look after, and maybe, you know, wider whānau stuff going on. So yeah, really important, I think, to address the kind of the grief or the confusion or the shock that may happen following a traumatic birth, whether that birth is traumatic in a psychological sense, or traumatic in a physical sense, due to kind of injury. Yeah.
So we talk about our midwives talk about it, the GP. We reach out to you know, online for those resources, those websites, to make sure that, you know, let you know that you're not the only one that's feeling this. It's normalizing it, kind of.
Yeah, for sure. And the My Birth Story website is really a place where people can go and get that validation, and you know, have us as an organisation, and as a birth trauma community, I guess, say, look, you're not alone. This is really common, right? Like, I think that's another thing that we forget, is how common this is. You know, 1 in 3 māmā would report their birth as kind of psychologically traumatic, which is a huge number. And then, you know, up to kind of 80% of birthing women will experience at least some kind of physical injury. So it's really, really common. But that doesn't mean that we need to kind of struggle through it. Hey, so so there's, you know, this big and incredible community of women out there, and birthing parents who have had the same or similar experiences. So I think reaching out to this kind of clinical support, like you know, physios and GPs, and talking to our midwives and things, is really helpful for that clinical treatment and support, but also reaching out to kind of that community of people who get it can be really helpful too. And again, some of those groups are listed on the external resources page of My Birth Story, so they're just really easy to find. But yeah, as I guess for physical injury, as a first port of call, your LMC, so your midwife or your obstetrician, is a really good place to kind of start. And I guess on that note, sometimes, you know, the injury is evident really quickly. Like it happens and it's really obvious following the birth. Like you know, your midwife can give you that support and can put in a claim to ACC the next day. And sometimes it's a lot further down the track. So midwife, GP, hospital staff, as I say, GP further down the track, or pelvic health physio, are your kind of first ports of call.
For a pelvic health physio, would that be a referral from your GP or the LMC, or could you just make that?
I think with Yeah, certainly your GP and your midwife can refer you, but with lots of pelvic health physios, you can just rock up and say, look, I've got this pain or this discomfort, or my LNC said I should come and get checked by you. So yeah, whichever way kind of works best for whānau. Yeah.
Oh, I think the next question kind of goes into this quite well. So the next question is, what are some of the types of birth injuries covered by ACC?
Yeah, so I guess backing it up just a touch, I guess historically, before the legislation changed and the new scheme came in, ACC would cover a birth injury if it could be proven that that injury was because of treatment that a mother or birthing person did or didn't receive. So if you went in to have your baby and you received some treatment, and as a result of that treatment that a midwife or a doctor gave to you, as a result of that treatment, if you were injured, then ACC, and you could prove it, then ACC would cover that injury. And then under the new, and that's still the case. So any injury at all that kind of falls under that can, you can still apply and still have that injury be covered. But following the legislation changes, any injury that's on the prescribed list of injuries, which is about 13 injuries long, any injury that's on that list is kind of automatically covered under the new legislation. And that's some pretty kind of complex injuries, but the really kind of common ones that are in there are perennial tears, so from first degree tears right through to a fourth degree tears, prolapse, levator avulsion, coccyx sprains, that kind of thing. So I guess one of the key kind of messages that we're saying to māmā and to whānau is, often we don't know those clinical terms.
I agree.
Yeah, like even I've been working with ACC for 18 months, and it's like, what's that one again? I just don't know the clinical stuff, right? So what we suggest to mums and whānau is, instead of trying to get your head around what injury you've got kind of clinically, go and have a chat to someone and share with them what you're experiencing. So the common kind of the common feelings and sensations that mums will experience when they've got one of these injuries are things like pain. So just kind of pain doing what you do, through the day, discomfort too. So often a really kind of heavy feeling, or things just feel different in your pelvic region. What else have we got there? So pain, discomfort, urinary or fecal incontinence. So that means essentially leaking of wee or poo. We often joke about that, right? As mums, like, oh, I can't jump on the trampoline, and it's really common. And I think there's so much shame and stigma attached with these injuries, but there just doesn't need to be. As I say, it's really, really common, these injuries. So we don't have to feel, it's easy to say don't feel that shame and stigma, but it's still there, right? But really encourage people to kind of try and skirt around that and go and get the support they need. So yeah, back to the list. So pain, discomfort, incontinence. What else have I got there? Also challenges, so pain or discomfort with sex and with intimacy. Can be kind of another symptom that people experience. So if there's any of those going on, then I'd certainly encourage people to go and get it checked out and have a chat with their midwife or their GP.
Yeah, I think those are probably better symptoms to kind of keep on your mind rather than the medical degree terms on the ACC. That even I struggle with.
Yeah, and I think a good way to think about it too is if we compare it with, like, I don't know, a cricket injury or a rugby injury, like you don't go to your, you hit your ankle, you don't go to your GP and go, oh, I think I've torn my ligament on my left, what's it? Like, you go and you go, oh, okay, GP, I've got pain and I've got swelling and I can't walk on it kind of thing. So it's the same with this injury, right? Yeah. And it's also the same with these injuries that we need the support, right? Like we deserve the support. Like if you went and you tore your ACL, you wouldn't kind of, often us mums, and particularly Kiwi mums, are really stoic. We're like, she'll be right. We'll just kind of battle on through. And that can be good sometimes, but also, if you went and tore your ACL, playing netball or whatever, you wouldn't actually have that attitude. You'd be like, right, okay, I'm injured, I need to heal, I need to rest, I need to gather all the support that I can from ACC or from my other supports, and I need to get better. And it's the same with this.
Yeah, definitely. That's it.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Makere.
I said that's an awesome way to put it. I like that. Yeah.
Sure.
I think we talked about it a little bit, but what actually are the changes to ACC cover and the support?
Yeah, sure. So, as I say, there was historically you could only get treatment and cover and care under a treatment, what they call a treatment injury, and now you can, now mums can get treatment and care if they have had one of those injuries that is on that prescribed list, and if baby was born on or after the 1st of October 2022. So those are the kind of the criteria. And on that note, I want to really acknowledge the members of the birth trauma community and the birth injury community who these changes don't help, because when we were kind of campaigning for these legislative changes, we campaigned really hard for them to be retrospective, so to not have that date on them, I guess. So anybody who's had a birth injury, no matter when they had their baby, would be covered by them. And also we campaigned really hard for standalone psychological birth trauma. So I just want to quickly acknowledge the people in the whānau who don't get the treatment and the care. These legislative changes don't help. So just wanted to do a little shout out to those māmā. But as I say, now if your baby was born on or after October 1st last year, and if your injury is on that defined list of injuries, then you should be able to get care really quickly if your LNC or your GP or your pelvic health physio puts in a claim. And those claims have been kind of the average time that it's taken for those claims to be accepted is like a day and a half. So you should be able to get onto treatment pretty quickly. Yeah.
So, sorry, I think one of the question was, how long post-birth can an injury trauma be covered by ACC?
Do you mean how long, like, is there kind of a defined limit that you can get treatment in, or that it lasts for? Is that what you mean?
I guess so. Yeah. How long post-birth can an injury trauma be covered by ACC? So I guess one of them. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
I was just going to say, you're covered for life.
Yeah.
So like any other injury, if you have a claim, if you put in a claim, have a birth injury, put in a claim, and your claim is accepted, you're covered for life, like any other, like that rugby, ACL injury. Yeah. So if your injury, crops up again, years down the track, then you're still covered under that same claim. And one of the misconceptions that's kind of floating around at the moment about the birth injury cover is that you have to apply within a certain time following the birth of your baby, and that's not the case. So you can apply for your injury any time following the birth of baby. So it can only be for babies that are born on or after October 1st, 2022. But you between now and and whenever, you can apply for that injury cover.
And that's the the ones that are covered on the that meet that criteria, isn't it?
On the list, yeah. So sadly, it is only the injuries on that list. But yeah, if it's on that list and you experience it, then you can make a claim. What we are encouraging people to do is to claim sooner rather than later, because it's just easier to kind of access notes and to kind of get the ball rolling.
Yes.
But another thing that we're also saying is, even if you feel like your injury is minor, or particularly those kind of grade 1 and grade 2 perennial tears, if you feel like, oh, it's just a little tear, or if you're coming across attitudes from healthcare professionals or from friends and whānau who are like, oh, it's just a minor thing, we would still encourage people to make a claim and to go through that process, because even if you never use any of the treatment or any of the care that's on offer, you've still got the claim accepted. And if you need that at any time down the track, then you can get it. You just make the call and get it. Another thing with birth injury and why we're suggesting that people make a claim even for kind of those minor injuries is that sometimes the kind of the symptoms or the challenges with the injury don't show up for months or even years down the track. So but again, if you've got the injury, if you've got the claim accepted, then you're good to go, basically.
Yeah. I think that's I remember going for a little bit off topic, but with your when you do the kids dental check and they say about knocking a tooth, and they always advise you, if your kid knocks a tooth, no matter what it was, go get an ACC claim form, because later on, if they can find that it's connected to that, then you've got a claim in you. So
good to go. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what happens if you do all of this and you go up to your doctor and your GP or your midwife and you're saying you've got these symptoms, and what if they don't advise you on the ACC, like they don't bring up ACC claim, or where do we go from that? And should all GPs be knowing this knowledge, or?
Yeah, and ACC and ourselves and a few other organisations out there are kind of really trying to educate, family-facing staff, so GPs, midwives, and things. We're really encouraging them to make a claim, and to make a claim anyway if there is an injury that's occurred, even if it's a minor injury. So if a māmā or a parent presents at the GP, and the GP says, well, no, we don't, it's just a minor injury, or we don't kind of think you need to, or what have you, I would really recommend, really encourage whānau to push back and to say, no, I want this registered. I deserve for this to be registered. I deserve that support. And if you don't get anywhere with that GP, go to another one.
Cool.
Simple as that. Go, keep on pushing until you get a good until you get a diagnosis, and until you get a claim put in, because you're absolutely deserving of that support. Again, if it was a rugby injury or a netball injury, or you fall over on the pavement and twist your ankle, you'd go and you get it. So it's no different for māmā.
Awesome. Cool. One of the other questions is tied up in the next question. What are the type of supports on offer? So I think someone has asked whether or not acupuncture is part of the care. Yeah, and actually, interestingly, acupuncture hasn't come up in our birth injury corridor through ACC. But if they're an ACC accredited acupuncturist, I don't see why not. So that would be something to kind of double check with ACC. But the care that's on offer for mums and birthing parents is physio, so pelvic health physio, and really with
with these birthing injuries, pelvic health physio are kind of a really good first point of call. They see these injuries all the time. It's really common for them, and they absolutely know their stuff. And often some of the pelvic health kind of exercises are enough to kind of settle it all down and treat it. So yeah, pelvic health physio, surgery if needed, and other kind of clinical treatment is available if it's deemed necessary. Childcare and home help is also on offer or available if you need it. So if you feel like your injury is kind of preventing you from doing laundry and that kind of thing, or if you feel like you need a bit of space and support with your other children, then you can ask for childcare and home help support. Rongoa Māori is also available. There's over 100 rongoa practitioners around the country, which is brilliant. And you don't have to be whānau Māori to access rongoa Māori, so that's open to everyone. Counselling is also available, and as I said earlier, physical injury can often kind of have a psychological or an emotional impact, so certainly use the counselling side of services if people need it. And then lastly, transport costs as well. So if you need to get to, from home to a physio appointment or from home to a GP to get checked out again, that kind of thing, then they can be covered as well. So all the same stuff that is available for people if they, do sprain their ankle or tear their ACL or what have you. Yeah.
Would the referral process for the counselling due to psychological effects, would that be the same pathway as like the GP or the midwife that would help refer you on to the counsellor, or would whānau just be able to jump online and?
Yeah, I think both actually.
Yeah.
So your GP should be able to kind of walk you through that and request that support. And if certainly once you've had a claim accepted, then you can also go and contact ACC directly and say, I'd like this support as well. Yeah.
Okay, we just had another question. Is there ACC support cover for recovery post-birth?
I'm not quite sure what that question means, but
it's a mama who's been 3 months since having my pepe, and I'm still not able to walk properly. I'm going to physio and getting pelvic floor assessments and currently paying full price.
Yeah, sure. That sounds really tough. So absolutely put in an ACC claim. So that pelvic health physio should be able to make that claim for you. What you can also do is on the ACC website, under the maternal birth injury kind of section of the ACC website, there's a section on there for mums and whānau. So have a look on there, and there should be kind of all the information that people need. But absolutely, that should be if that injury is one of those injuries that's on that list, then there's no reason for mama to be paying full price. On that note, some clinics do have kind of an extra fee. So sometimes at some clinics, families will need to pay a little bit extra over and above the amount that ACC will pay. So that's just something to be a bit mindful of. We're advocating to have that extra payment removed, because it just puts up a barrier to people getting support. But at the moment there may be a little bit of an extra cost.
Yeah. I think we've talked about it throughout the whole thing, how people can access the support. So I brought it up quite a bit. I know you have too. But is there anything else that you think you can add, or any other kind of anything else that you can add to that?
Yeah. I think just really encouraging people to seek it out and to remind themselves that they are deserving of the support, and just to really seek it out, and to look on the ACC website to get more information, to talk to your GP or your midwife, or your obstetrician, and if you kind of don't feel like you're getting anywhere with them, or you've still got questions, or you've still got kind of health concerns, then keep looking, keep searching, and just remember that you're deserving of that support. That whole kind of care package has been created for you, for mums and birthing parents and whānau, and you deserve to have that support, especially because you're the one supporting baby, right? Like, that's a huge job. That's a job that's big enough without having an injury involved as well. So utilise that whole suite of services, the rongoa, the counselling, the home help and childcare. Use all of it, because if you're feeling well within yourself and healthy, then that makes life just so much easier.
And I think a thing to take out of this would be that it's there, and if it's not being offered to you when you're going to these places, ask.
Absolutely.
Tell them that you are entitled to it, because it's all there. It's there.
Yep, absolutely. And and that's the beauty of having this kōrero, right? Is that now people that are listening, they know that physio is available to them, that extra treatment is if they need it, counselling, rongoa, all of it is there. So go and utilise it, because that's going to have a flow-on effect, right, for baby and the rest of the wider whānau as well. So we're doing ourselves and our whānau a favour if we go and get that support.
That's the thing, us māmā, we always want to give everything for our babies and that, but sometimes we're always working on a little bit of a half full cup. But
yeah,
full up our
for sure. Yeah.
So is there any discussion around whether or not they're going to change that date?
And make it retrospective? Yeah. So I guess it's important to know that ACC can only kind of do what the legislation has stated. So there was a big, kind of period of campaigning, a big push for the legislation to change to include all birth injury with no kind of date attached to it. And as I mentioned earlier, we didn't quite get there with that. What also happened when the legislation changed is that they included in that change a review in 3 years' time. So that's now 2 years' time, because a year has lapsed. But Birth Trauma Aotearoa, so myself and a few other organisations are still and will continue to campaign and to advocate for all birth injuries, no matter what the date of the injury, to be covered. So we've got a bit of work to do as an organisation in the next couple of years before that review period to really kind of hammer that home, that everybody deserves the support. And
how could we all at home help you in that? Like, is there, if people, mums out there, because it's going to be bandwagon of us going, we need this. What's our part that we can play to kind of help change?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think if people are interested in the work of Birth Trauma Aotearoa, because this is really part of our advocacy work, then the best way to do that is to follow along on our Facebook page, which is just, as I say, Birth Trauma Aotearoa, and we've just got a new, very simple website, which has just gone live, and that's birthtraumaaotearoa.org.nz. So keeping in touch with what we're doing there, and it may be that there's a period of kind of story collecting that we can then gather up and present those. Absolutely. And one caveat I will put around that is, if you are going to share your story, then make sure that you're well supported when you do that, because that can be quite a big process for people. But if you are feeling well supported and do want to share your story, then we can gather those as part of our advocacy for further changes. Then we can following along as we do our mahi is certainly a way to get involved. And then when that process comes up for review, if it's open to the public as well, we'll certainly share that on our social media channels and potentially on our website, so then people can get involved. I don't know yet how that review is going to take place and what the kind of process is, but I'm in the process of finding that out at the moment, because that review process is kind of starting now. So yeah.
I think I've got a couple more questions. Is there any financial support available, loss of income, for example, or anything else?
That's a good question, and that's a complicated one because of maternity leave and things. And I actually don't know the answer to that question, I'm sorry. So the best place to ask is ACC directly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And my husband got a doctor's note to take 6 weeks off. I think this is pretty similar. 6 weeks off work to help me after my birth injury. He had to use all of his sick leave for the year. Is there compensation for this?
So it's about dad helping mum, is that right?
Using sick leave, yeah.
My guess is no financial compensation, sadly. I definitely check it out again. Go back to ACC, and if your claim was accepted, then that might change it. But my guess is there won't be, sadly. Yeah.
Again, it could have fallen behind under the home help and that if it had been.
Yeah. And as it's kind of retrospective, it might not be able to come in, and best to check in with ACC direct if you've had a claim which is accepted. Yeah.
And then, so will the ACC contacts that'll be on their website link. So if we add that to that'll be in the chat. So you can just kind of click on that, and then you'll find the contacts and all of that, how to contact them directly on that link too, right?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think we haven't had any more questions in for a while. So is there anything else that you wanted to just add at the end of this to kind of wrap it up? And then
I guess just a couple of key take-home points from me would be for mums and birthing parents to remember that the injury, whether it's a psychological kind of injury or a physical injury from birth, it wasn't your fault. It's like, I can't kind of express that enough. It wasn't your fault that it happened. And the responses that we have to it, the grief, the confusion, the distress that I mentioned earlier, there's such a normal response to such a big rubbishy event happening. So please be gentle with yourselves, and do gather the support around that you need. And lastly, we kind of touched on it earlier, but just acknowledging some of the attitudes, I guess, that people come across when they express either kind of psychological or emotional distress, or if they're they're mentioning the discomfort or the pain of a physical injury. Some of those common attitudes we come across, like, at least baby is healthy, or you need to be grateful because it's only a grade 2 tear and I had a grade 4 tear, or well, what do you expect? It's birth. Like, some of those really, really unhelpful kind of dismissive attitudes that we come across. And little mantra that you can kind of tell yourself when that happens, and even express to the person if you feel, if you feel comfortable. We're allowed to feel two things at once, right? Like, we're allowed to feel really grateful that our baby is healthy, but also really annoyed and angry or pissed off that we've got, a third degree tear, or we've got a prolapse, or that we're feeling really, really wobbly about our birth. So it's okay to feel two things at once. And yeah, everyone is deserving of that support.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. This has been an amazing. I love these. I actually love doing the Facebook Lives because I learned so much.
Cool.
So thank you so much. Yes, just thank you for joining us. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing another one maybe later on. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about doing another live chat around more of the psychological birth trauma, so the emotional responses. Yeah. Cool. So keep an eye out if people are interested. Yeah. Or there's that live chat on our Facebook page as well.
Yes, yes, the webinar. Beautiful. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and just like to say thank you to everyone for clicking in and sharing your questions with us. Yeah, ka kite, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the weekend.
Kia ora, everyone.
Weekday weekend, yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Bye.